Hello, my name's Ben, and welcome to my Black Sails podcast. I don't even have a name for it yet. It'll be better than the Black Sails podcast. I just wanted to get this first episode done because it's fresh in my mind. So yeah, this is going to be a podcast where I deep dive into everything Black Sails. I'm going to have a camera on. I am going for more a podcast vibe. So yeah, stick me on while you're making your dinner or having a poo or something. I don't know.
Crying out loud.
But yeah, I'm kind of winging it for now is the basic gist. So it's kind of a work in progress, but I'll go off feedback, and if there is any, if anyone watches this, it might just me and maybe another person will find it and we'll be chatting between ourselves, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, I'm aiming, for a 30 to 45 minute kind of episode. Go into it all, go through the scenes. Again, kind of winging it, kind of going to go with the flow. The question you might be asking yourself, well, why now? You're like years after it's finished and like 2 years after I did my reaction. Because this is the best show ever, simply, and yeah, it's lived rent-free in my head since I reacted to it on this channel. Yeah, the writing, the acting, the music, production, character and plot development, it's all there and it knew what it was doing from the start. It's the best show that no one I know has seen, pretty much. I'm still trying to get people to watch now, I'm always trying to fob it off to my brothers and just please watch it. I know you're going to like it. I need someone, a real person to talk to, but I still have got nowhere with that. So I had a unique first watching experience. I actually reacted to it on this channel. I think I finished it early 2022. It was a little group of us, and by the way, hello, if I pop up on anyone's algorithm again, from any of the old crew, that watch that along with me, or watch my reactions, I should say, hello again, and yeah, I hope you'll join me again. This is different, and a bit of a different vibe. Yeah, so I've since had, I think 2, maybe, full watch-throughs, and yeah, I'm picking up things I completely missed in the reaction, again, a different kind of way to watch it, because I was kind of conscious of what I was doing, if that makes sense. So I wasn't always taking things in. Even this episode alone, this first episode, I just picked up so much more, and I was like, oh, so that's what that was always about. I didn't, so that's going to happen a lot more. It will be fun to compare my initial thought of certain things and see if they've changed or the way I've sort of reacted to a scene. But I do want to make this its own thing, because I've changed a lot in 2 years, and my opinions on things have changed. But I will post a link for, whatever episode we're discussing for the reaction in question, just in case you're new or if you did want to go back. But yeah, this is going to be its own kind of thing, basically, is what I'm saying. So yeah, I have to obviously say this is very inspired by Fathoms Deep, which is an amazing podcast. Been accompanying me on my walks now for the last 2 or 3 months. I pretty much just finished it all, and I was like, oh man, this was awesome. And they were doing it at the time, it was peak 2017, just before the last season was airing, and around the same time. They deep dive, they go in, I don't know if I'll quite go as deep in terms of theological and all that sort of stuff. I don't think I quite have the smarts for that, but and I want to make it a bit different, otherwise what's the point? I might as well just give you that sort of thing. Basically, I just want to talk about the show I love. I can talk amongst myself pretty easily and keep the conversation flowing, but yeah, if some people find it and are like, oh, Black Sails stuff, and we get another little crew going, that's brilliant, that's awesome. So yeah, what are we in store for, you're saying? Well, what's going on? You've been waffling for ages now. What's going to be going down? We're going to have episode breakdowns, it's going to be the main thing. We're going to go scene by scene. Yeah, we're going to dissect all the things. Character and arcs, plot, production, foreshadowing. Best thing about this show is that the characters are so multi-layered. Good people do bad things, bad people do good things, but a lot of the time they're just people. And yeah, it's just so much more complex than that. Especially once you take away the piracy and the kind of fantasy elements. And that's why the show is so great. Yeah, and obviously, although this goes without saying, but if you're watching this and you haven't seen Black Sails, I don't know how that would have happened, but on that very small chance that it has, this is going to be spoilers. Again, I am going to try and stick to the episode in discussion, but I'm not going to be all spoiler coming from what, I'm just going to say it, because I can't be arsed with all that. You've seen it. It's 7 years ago. So yeah, depending how many discover this, we can have a lot more interactions than my reactions did, because obviously with reactions I kind of had to say, no spoilers please, like, stick to the episode I'm watching or back. So it wasn't always easy to interact, whereas this way, because this is a lot easier for me to do this way, I don't have to worry about editing, and I mean I have to edit, but you know, I haven't got to cut clips and edit both me and the reaction and then worry about copyright and all that sort of stuff. So some fun things I'm going to do, you know, obviously as well as the run through, which I'm not just going to run it through, you know, we're going to go into it, but every episode, you know, there's 38 episodes and they're numbered. I'm going to give it a name that I think suits it. Of course, again, play along in the comments. Give me what you would call this episode, or if you agree, or whatever. And again, yeah, your takes on certain scenes or moments or whatever, you know, there's a chance they're going to differ from mine in a lot of places. So let me know. Let me know in the comments. It's all fun. It's all chill and all that sort of stuff. After I've done the rundown, I'll award an MVP of the episode, who stood out, who was doing bit. I'll do a favourite moment, favourite quote, and a rating. I don't know, maybe a couple of fun ones if we can think of them, like best drip or something like that. Yeah, if you can think of, you know, some fun little things that I can do at the end of the episode, let me know in the comments. And again, suggestions are welcome. So, yeah, I have to do, obviously, episode 1, a bit of a longer intro, just to let you know kind of what you're in for and all that sort of thing. But obviously, normally, just go straight into it. Season 1's the weakest, but I think it's fairer to say that seasons 2, 3, and 4 are that fucking good. Yeah, but season 1, foundations are being laid. I've picked up new things every time, but I can understand why some may dip out if they only give it the first 3 or 4 episodes. But at the same time, even if the plot hasn't grabbed you by that point, if none of these characters by episode 4 has piqued your interest even a little to, like, you wanna, Vane's looking interesting, Flint's looking interesting, let me hang on for a bit. You know, if that hadn't happened, then yeah, I don't think it was going to happen for them people, was it? So yeah, this show wasn't for them. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into episode 1.
First item.
Alright, so yeah, I decided to, well, I was torn between calling this episode War Against the World, maybe, or A Spaniard Named Vasquez, which, yeah, I think that's the one I'm going to go for. You know, it would have been a good little teaser one, like, oh, that's interesting, and the fact that if you don't catch the little speech and quite what it means, and Flint's story, and, you know, how this named but never seen character plays such a big part in everything that's to come. So yeah, that felt like a good little something they might have gone for. So we get our first cold open. 1715 West Indies. The pirates of New Providence Island threaten maritime trade in the region. The laws of every civilized nation declare them enemies of all mankind. In response, the pirates adhere to a doctrine of their own: war against the world. Right, yeah, so we just get sweeping shots of the ocean. We see 2 ships, one in the foreground, you know, one in the background. Obviously, season 1, yeah, it's on a budget. We can tell that pretty early on. Special effects and all that sort of stuff. It's not as tight as it will get. It's still, don't get me wrong, it's still great. But you can, if you're looking for it, you can tell, especially when they're on the water, you can sort of see, oh, we're sort of on a soundstage, you know, blue screen and green screen and all that sort of stuff. But once the action starts, you, like, quickly forget. So yeah, we've got kind of 2 things below deck and above deck going on simultaneously. So yeah, there's panic on board. The captain, he peeps the pirate flag, and yeah, we will find out that's Flint's banner. He's known at this point. He's advised to surrender by, I assume, his quartermaster, but he wants to fight. And meanwhile, below, we see the cook steal a page from a book. So yeah, this is one of those where, yeah, maybe it's a little bit convenient. He knew what he was looking for. Well, why would the cook know what this page is about and just how important it is and where exactly to find it, you know, to the, like, it took him seconds. Yeah, I don't know if that's just a little plot point, you know, that kind of fell through and they were like, no, we're not going to explain this. Or maybe there was a throwaway line or throwaway scene, or yeah, one of those, alright, we'll let that go, but that seemed all a bit easy. Yeah, so he steals that page, he rips that page out, and then he heads a bit further below deck, and Silver is not far behind. He comes crashing through behind him. Obviously, we don't know it's Silver at this point. Yeah, he's not slick with it yet, but he's always at least one step ahead, John Silver. So yeah, they have a little conversation, and the cook essentially seals his own fate. He says, I'm going to be useful, I've got a trade, but Flint will gut you for a coward. Back above deck, the ship is wrecked by now. The walrus has attacked, the ship's lost its sails, and there's holes, and there's men down. And then we go back, and Silver now has spotted the cook has got something, and then so he counters, well, maybe I'll come in useful if I can get hold of that. And they duke it out. Great cuts between these two events of the crew attacking, of the walrus crew attacking, and kind of Silver plotting, planning, and eventually it coming to fisticuffs. Right, so then we get, when they're in the hold, the hype when the walrus crew boards. Oh, it's so good. I love it every time. Just like, woof, woof, all the... No, that's making everything shake. Don't do that. Yeah, just like... Oh, so good, so good. Everyone's hyped. The captain's trying to peep out, see what's going on. Can't see anything. And then, the chanting stops, it goes quiet. And just a single barrel rolls towards them. A few seconds, and boom! Chaos ensues. So, he's not named yet, but Joshua is first to enter, and he's intimidating as hell. He's scarred, he's got war paint, he's wearing these teeth. I called him Teeth throughout most of the reaction, because I never caught his name. So it was like a little in-joke, I just called him Teeth. Poor guy, but it's Joshua. Yeah, it's all intimidation, it's all scare tactics, and it's working. There's literally one guy just sat on the floor like, Rah! And it's over in seconds. So Singleton, he is a stereotypical pirate, probably the most out of all of them. He goes to get the final blow on the captain, and he's blocked with a sword. And we get that slow reveal of Flint, and he said it's done. Wouldn't you agree? And he says that to the captain, and the captain is now like, yeah, I'm good. White flag. Obviously, we get the fantastic opening credits, that fantastic theme by Ben McCready. It's one of those credits you can't skip. Tune and the hype, and they look great. So really good. And also, it's always good because they don't do the same actors' credits all the time. They chop and change it, like. If an actor's not going to be in this episode, you'll find out in the credits, and you generally get a gist of who's going to play the bigger part sometimes. I don't always pay attention to who wrote the episode and who directed it, but I'm going to try this time around. It was written by Jonathan Steinberg and Robert Levine. I don't know, obviously if it ends up they did everything, I won't say that every time, but this one was directed by Neil Marshall. So we can see as we go further along who directed what, who did the stronger episodes and things like that maybe. But again, I don't go too deep into all that. So we're back into it now, and with two of my biggest fears all happen in one shot. In one glorious shot, but one shot. I have a fear of deep water, so we get an underwater shot, with no surface, and there's like two big sharks in it, and I have a phobia of sharks as well. Good fun. But it's gorgeous, and then we come up to the ship. So the vibe now is completely different. They've got their goods, and the crews are all kind of sorted out the way, and they're going through their plunder. You see Gates now. We're introduced to Gates for the first time. Like I say, it was all just intimidation and scare tactics basically. Like we see Joshua, he's wearing false teeth. He has a little bit of banter with Gates. The mood's good. The mood's generally pretty good. Gates breaks through the door where Silver is. We see the cook dead on the floor. And Silver kind of blags it a bit, and he says, he was too scared, or he killed. He basically insinuates he killed himself, but he wants to join Flint's crew. And we get the classic line, "My name is John Silver, and I happen to be a very good cook." And then we get that grin. I can't do it. I want to give some first thoughts, obviously, as we're going through for some of these characters. I think my first thoughts of Silver were like, he's sneaky, cowardly. I think was a bit one of my thoughts earlier on. He's slick with it, and he's an opportunist. I don't know if I stand by cowardly anymore. I mean, obviously now I have a lot of hindsight, so it's hard. I think he's using his smarts with that. He ducks undercover. He goes down below. He knows what the crew were all saying. He's probably listened and like, we're not winning this battle. It's only the captain that was like, no, I can do it. And he's seen it. I need to get in with this next crew because they're going to be... This crew's done. So he just gets to the lowest point, and in the ship, I mean, and kind of wings it. And he happens to bump into the cook, and then he happens to see the page, and it just all kind of goes from there, and he just absolutely plays it by ear. Right, so yeah, so now we're back on deck, and so Singleton, he's given like a sales pitch kind of to the, the crew they've just taken over. The ones that didn't die, they're all kind of looking a bit sorry for himself. The captain is tied up on the mast. He's not happy with the way things have been going and how Flint's been running things. He's ready to get a crew together and become captain, but we'll get into that a bit more. And Gates introduces John Silver to Billy Bones, who we will get into in a little bit. Tom Hopper, he's not stacked yet, but damn. Damn, Billy. We get a funny little exchange, just a little moment between Silver just grinning at Billy, just like, Billy's like... I always thought that was a fun little moment. But yeah, we'll get a bit more into Billy in a bit. So yeah, so then Gates joins Dufresne in the cabin. Dufresne is the accountant, I'm going to say, at this point anyway. Not much to say about Dufresne at this point. We don't know enough at this point. These first few episodes, I can speak nicely of him, but, So yeah, we learn it's not been the best plunder ever. It's about $8 per man. Flint is revealed, he's also in the room. We get a great kind of, it's out of focus, and then he comes into focus. And then we get on to the missing page. Gates spots the missing page. I think Flint's looking at it or something. And it's a schedule. We don't know what for yet, but we will find out soon. Flint seems calm. He doesn't seem stressed about it all. But Gates lays it out to him. This is their fourth plunder now with no real profit. Singleton's got the crew, he's got them fired up any moment to kind of overthrow him. Flint he's not taking it in really by the looks of it. And so yeah, so good point to quickly do my Gates first thoughts. In all honesty, my first watch through, when I was reacting, it wasn't I didn't not think anything of Gates, but he wasn't a character that necessarily stood out to me at first watch. I liked him, I didn't dislike him, and it wasn't that he was boring or anything, but I think at the time there were bigger characters that were taking my interest. Because in this first episode especially, he's doing a lot of little bits, but I don't think he's a big standout, he's maybe not your takeaway. Yeah, that's pretty much my sort of first thoughts on Gates, and obviously, yeah, that I'm looking forward to seeing these scenes again and getting really into Gates, because I really enjoyed him this episode. For the first time I was really like, wow, Gates is doing bits. So Flint asks the captain, we're back on deck now, where the page is. The captain's got no idea. Meanwhile, Gates is trying to calm Singleton down a bit, and get that situation in hand. And yeah, and they get into it a bit, and he calls Gates out, calls him cunning, and says that he pretends to be for the crew, but really he's in Flint's pockets, which is not completely off the mark. It won't be completely that way for long. They're boys, you can see that, in a little bit. And he looks out for him, some history there and a loyalty there. Yeah, it's not completely off the mark. But Singleton, he's pretty confident he's going to be captain soon. It's just a matter of time, and I think Gates kind of realised that. And so this conversation is happening while Flint and the tied up captain, are having their conversation. We kind of go back to them, and he's been sort of watching this, and he quickly kind of cottons on, and he's like, he realises Flint's maybe not quite in control of his whole crew at this point. Yeah, he kind of basically says, look, you're not in control. How long until it's you tied up on this mast? And yeah, Flint doesn't like that, does he? So he realises this is a dead end. This guy's got nothing. So he goes to kind of walk away, and because he obviously we'll get more into Flint in due course and stuff. I say he knows when to pick his battles, but he knows... Yeah, I think maybe if the guy had known or helped him out a bit, he might have done him a solid, but he knows he's on the ropes with Singleton, so if he says no to this kind of torture or whatever that Singleton's got planned, he knows it makes life more difficult for him. He goes to walk away, and the captain says, I won't give you the satisfaction of crying out, and Flint just says, good for you. Ooh, that's cold, Flint. And then it looks like things are about to get intense between Flint and Singleton, but a man of war is spotted, the Scarborough, and Flint orders a hasty retreat. So we're back on the Walrus now, and Randall is introduced. we learned he was boatswain until he was beaten and lost his wits. And yeah, we're going to put a little pin in that for now. And come back to that at a later episode. You know, Billy tells him they're taking on a new cook. He's not impressed. He doesn't say a lot. He doesn't say much at all at this moment. But yeah, I love the little moment where Billy's like watching him and like looks at Silver and be like, "You'll be alright." And Billy kind of lays down how it works. You know, he says everything is equal, no special treatment, no extra portions, not for me, not for the captain, all the same, which is pretty much more or less true to pirate history. Pirates, they had like democracy. It might look different from one crew to the next, but generally they had codes and procedures, laws, and they lived by them. But of course, that belief and that system and, you know, all that kind of Billy knows to be true, that's shattered pretty soon by his knowledge of Flint's deceit, you know, in a little short while. Okay, so now we're back with Gates, and he's in Flint's cabin, and yeah, he tells him Singleton has the votes, and we get our first beg pardon, which is a common little phrase that comes up a lot. I won't mention it every time, but I thought it was worth giving the first one a cheers to the first beg pardon. I think Flint is a little bit kind of miffed. You know, he thought Gates had it covered, and I think he assumed it would all be done now and blown over, because obviously this is something Gates has come to him a few times, and he's kind of gone, yeah, we know Flint, that's what he would have done, because that's not what's in his mind, is it? We see soon what's on his mind. Yeah, from what we now know, we know, yeah, Flint's been, alright, whatever, anytime he brought it up. But now it's actually an issue. He's like, oh, why didn't you sort it? But yeah, Gates, you know, he reiterates, it's been 3 months with no profit. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows the truth of what you're doing here. So yeah, so Flint says, right, well, he's going to go see Richard Guthrie to help recreate the schedule, which is what he essentially needs. And we see this is a scene where him and Flint, Gates and Flint, have a really good understanding of each other and have a really nice little camaraderie going on. Like, there's pressure on them both, but it's friendly. Like, Flint's up against it and that, and he thought Gates had it, but it's still, like, Gates does a little thing where he knows Flint's not going to stop pursuing this. He suggests, look, why don't we just go for a couple of big ships? Let's just go for a couple of big ones, get a bit of money, you know, and then maybe have a rethink. You know, he says something along them lines. And he just knows, no, Flint's not going to give up, and he's going to go see Guthrie, and that's what's going to happen. Again, yeah, I just appreciate Gates a little bit more every time I watch now. And so Billy announces they're home. Okay, so now we arrive at Nassau, New Providence Island. Nassau just looks amazing. It looks gorgeous colours, gorgeous scenery. I know this was filmed primarily in Cape Town in South Africa. I don't know what's soundstage and what's real and that sort of thing, but I think it's a little combination of both in places. But yeah, it looks the part. Yeah, so here we see, you know, straight away that Gates and Billy have a good relationship. Talked about Gates and Flint at this point having a decent, solid relationship. They've got a very kind of father and son thing going. We'll obviously see more of that in time, but yeah, you can see it pretty early on, you know, they're solid. He tells Billy, look, you're going to need to see to the business with Flint and what he's doing, because I'm going to be doing the real stuff. You know, he doesn't say that. He knows Flint's just, he's doing his thing. He's got to do what he's got to do, and he doesn't think it's going to come to much, and pretty much everything he says happens. You know, he says, you need to be there and keep Flint calm, when Guthrie inevitably says no. Because, yeah, Mr. Guthrie, we're going to get some exposition now, he's running things, yeah, and when he's pissed off, crews lose out. But obviously, yeah, we'll know soon that Gates has a different Guthrie in mind to go to for help. And then obviously, yeah, we get a great little Billy and Flint moment. Billy, but he never listens to me. And then, yeah, Gates is like, I can assure you the captain regards you with your input more than you know. And then, you know, a little beat, and he goes, Billy's going with you, to Flint. And Flint like, who's Billy? And yeah, and a good point to have a little quick of Billy's first impressions. Again, a bit like Gates, he didn't take form as a character, but he wasn't so prominent to me on first watch that I was too transfixed by him. So I don't really remember having too much first opinions on Billy. He seemed like a chill, nice guy. We see in this episode that he thinks everything's one way, and he takes everything. He's a bit naive, is the word I'm looking for. And obviously very soon, that's all going to be shattered. Yeah, so Silver's, they're on the dock and they're loading and things like that. And Silver's, he's fishing for information. And we're fed a little bit more info about how it works between trading with the Guthries. They act as the middlemen, essentially, Richard Guthrie. Essentially, yeah, so he's between the pirates and the kind of big merchants, I guess, the big people, and he gets to basically get away scot-free if anything falls back. He gets to make a profit, the pirates make a bit of money, It's essentially, obviously, Eleanor's doing the same thing, but to a lesser degree at this point. But, yeah, they're all kind of in on it. Yeah, and also this guy that Silver's talking to, this crew member, this is what I like about this show, what I noticed, in the earlier seasons, you see a lot of these little crew members that you recognise more in later seasons because they had a little bit bigger parts to play. Yeah, and the guy he's talking to here, I didn't catch his name. This is the guy who, along with his sweet, sweet Charlotte, may or may not be shanked by a very pissed off pirate in the next season. Yeah, so Silver has another flick through the volumes. Now, he realised one's missing. He's still got no idea what he's got, but he knows it's tasty. And yeah, Dufresne tells him anything not logged will be with the captain on the ship. And, we get a little, he likes his books. It's a throwaway line, but obviously we know in future books will be very important when it comes to Flint and kind of his backstory and him and Miranda and things like that. So yeah, that was a nice little foreshadowing, a little touch there. So now we get the infamous Blackbeard scene. Yeah, there's a lot of mixed opinions on this one. Some people hate it, some people love it. And I think there's loads of me that are like, I don't love it, but I'm not like, it's one of those. I get it. They need Max to peep the page. This is essentially, and she does. The job's done. We'll later learn she doesn't do solos. So, yeah, to get her and Silver together, and she is a prostitute, it makes sense to do it this way, but I don't know. It just does feel a bit cheap and a bit pandering, like... the creators knew going in, they had a target audience. Like, this is who's going to be tuning in straight away. But hopefully we can build on that. And, and I think it's proved it has a varied genders, sexuality and all that sort of stuff, in its fans and its target base. But at this point they were like, red-blooded heterosexual males, let's go. Is kind of what they were going for. Maybe a little bit of Game of Thrones kind of vibe as well. It's a bit cringe, and it's also like, why would he get this treatment, what do you want to call it, initiation, like, so early on? Alright, if they were loaded maybe, but we've just learned that there's no money, they've just done a raid, and, and they got no money from it. No one's doing well in that respect. So why would they group together, not just for one woman, but like a group of them? I think it's 5 or 6. On a logical sense, it doesn't make a lot of sense. In hindsight, if they went back to this one, they'd be like, oh yeah, we're tightening that up, and we'll find a better way to get Max and Silver together. It's not a big moan, but thankfully that's one of the worst, I think, sex scenes out the way. They're normally pretty solid and have meaning and make sense. Just a little moan on that one. Okay, so now, yeah, we go from one slightly scene to another that's, again, could have been improved a little bit, I think. And we meet Eleanor and Mr. Scott, but Mr. Scott's very brief in this, so we'll talk about him another time. Yeah, it's another one that's ticking the, this is our target audience box, I think. Yeah, without knowing how good the dialogue really gets, it serves. It serves as a first watch and an introduction to Eleanor, but considering how complex she is, I think she deserved maybe a little bit of a stronger intro. Yeah, it does what's needed. Yeah, it basically shows us, she's a woman kind of living in this man's world. She's got no physical strength, so she has to blag it a bit. She has to muck in, talk the lingo, drop some F-bombs, play the big I am a little bit, and yeah, and we get this kind of scene, one guy, Mr. Sanderson, he gives her a bit of lip, and she knows he's a big earner, and she knows he's good, so she can't just say fuck off, so she sweetens him a bit, doesn't she? And and plays the feminine card a bit, you know, and it's all, yeah, it's fine. It's fine, it does the job, but again, probably could have been a bit better. Yeah, so Eleanor, first impressions. Like, yeah, when I first watched this scene, you know, yeah, I think I fell for it. I felt, you know, I was like, oh, that's hot. And it's only when you watch it back and you're like, oh, I think that's doing her a little injustice, you know, when you've seen the whole thing. First impressions with Eleanor, obviously, yeah, not taking too much into hindsight, trying to just go with initial. Yeah, I thought she was tough, take no shit, she's independent. And with that, I sort of slashed that equally lonely. We're going to see sort of more of that. And then what we will see as well in this episode, you know, straight off the bat, she is rash. Eleanor is rash. Eleanor is maybe Flint's rash, but I don't know, there's a different kind of rash to Flint. But Eleanor's just... yeah, she doesn't think things through quite a lot. Always, but yeah, we'll deal with that when we come to it. So Gates, he fills her and Scott in about the Singleton and the Flint situation. Yeah, essentially he asked for a loan. He's got an idea to kind of get some men on side and just get some more numbers back on their side, and it's an investment for the sake of Flint. Yeah, so they agree on 1,000 pieces of 8. You know, Scott's not keen and doesn't think Flint's a good investment, but Eleanor's ready to help. So right, yeah, and now we cut to Flint and Billy visiting Richard Guthrie. He lives on a separate island, he's got a completely different house, big mansion, you know, while Eleanor's obviously, she's in her little room in the tavern, in whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so Flint asks Billy what the crew think of him, and this is where we learn Billy's a boatswain. Flint's trying to get a feel, I think maybe it's hit him like, right, I maybe have to try and start getting the crew on side. So he's trying to get a little bit of info from Billy. He's going through all these things, and you know, he says, I think they think I'm too, and Billy says weak, and you know, and he was like, I was going to say unlucky. You know, he doesn't like the thought that he's thought of as weak. And then we meet Richard Guthrie. Again, it's early days, but I never liked this guy. Oh my god. Pompous, just a pompous twat. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's really good. He plays that kind of character so well. Now we get a proper intro to Max. Whew, damn. All the other girls are gone, and Max is sort of just getting herself sorted, and so Silver, and he straight away, you know, he gets that post clarity, and he realises he's been swindled, you know, he's kind of like, and then Max just holds it up, and she's like, a whore for every finger in your hand, but your eyes kept drifting to this, and yeah. If Silver is always one step ahead, Max is 5. Like, Max is... I loved Max in my first watch through, my reaction. She always got a lot of love from me and a lot of time for her scenes. But wow, I just appreciate her so much more now. Like, she holds him at a stalemate straight away. He threatens to tell Noonan, you know, what would he think if one of his whores is agotising the customer or whatever he says. And she's like, well, what would your captain say if he knows you've been holding a treasure behind? She knows he's got nothing. Thinks she works out he doesn't really know what he's going to do with this, whatever he's got. And she offers to find someone to buy it, but she wants half of whatever it sells for. They gas a little bit more, and then we get the little Silver line, you know, where I think she sort of asks why. Why did you take it? And he says, me, I see an opportunity, I take it. I can't help myself. It's a sickness. Truly. And so my first thoughts on Max, yeah, oh, gorgeous, obviously. That's by and by. Not an important factor, but you know, it is a factor. Yeah, she's smart, a little bit sly, a little bit like a female Silver. They kind of have, you know, in this scene and the scene where Silver takes the page originally. They peep it, they see it, and they're like, right, I can do something with this. Very similar. But yeah, we'll see a lot more of Max, you know, obviously as the story develops, and she'll get a lot of time. But yeah, I love Max, and I liked her from the start. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy you, I think. So yeah, so Gates is still trying to get the crew in order. So yeah, he's obviously he's got this money now from Eleanor, this loan, and he's brought back, I think he says 16 votes. He's chatting now with a guy called Messiah, you know, part part of the crew. I think this is sort of in with Joshua. I think this might be maybe the black guys, and they just got their little crew. Their little kind of clique, I guess you want to call it. Yeah, and obviously Messiah and his little gang would hold sway to a vote that would put it in Flint's favour. To decide it. Gates has got no money left, he's used it on these to buy him back these 16 votes, but a deal is struck, and he leaves the tavern, Gates, and we see a curious little fellow peeping him from afar. And we follow this fella, and he blags, so this is Jack. Jack blags to Singleton immediately. Like, we don't see it all, but, that's what he's doing. So, Jack Rackham. So, first thoughts, again, it's hard to not bias this. We don't get a lot of Jack in this episode, so first thoughts are pretty brief. Sly, again, unique, almost out of place. So he's got this, obviously, he's Calico Jack. That's what he was in real life. He was known for kind of wearing sort of fancy colours and clothing and things like that. Yeah, he's got his coloured tie and he's got his hair, and he wasn't wearing his shades, was he? But I think he wears them in one of the next coming episodes. Yeah, he looks very different. He still looks like a pirate, but he's got like a David Bowie thing going on. Yeah, Jack's Jack, isn't he? Jack's going to get a lot of love during this, but for now, it's a short scene, it's a short intro, so yeah, we'll leave it at that.
I have no notes.
And we get another really short scene. Max, now she's disguised as kind of in pirate clothing. She rows Silver to the walrus to obviously be lookout, because they're the only two in on it at this point. And now in the office with Guthrie, Flint does his "let me tell you a story about a Spaniard named Vasquez," which is obviously the line I took as inspo for the title for the episode, because it's an important story. It's how essentially Urca de Lima came to be known. Obviously he drops that name, find out kind of what the missing page is for and what he's kind of been doing. We don't really know why yet, but we don't know the intensity of it all yet. Obviously, Spanish treasure galleon, the Urca de Lima. It's got like 5 million in cargo. And this is where Billy realises there's more to Flint, than he thought, and they've been lied to a little bit and been played a little bit. And Richard Guthrie, he doesn't seem interested at all. Like, he could care less. His face is just bore someone else. He doesn't give a shit. Flint, he says he needs help, as Guthrie has inside knowledge of Spanish operations, but he flat out refuses, Mr. Guthrie. And as Gates suspected, Flint turns ugly. Cool, he's like, let me make myself plain. I will have that name. And then he just lunges. And at some point he says, Billy, point your pistol at him. Or he says something like that, but obviously we see Billy is pointing his pistol at him. He's doing what Gates asked him to, not his captain, in this moment. And then, thankfully, I guess we say thankfully, Captain Hume of the Scarborough crashes the party. So Guthrie covers for them and says they're sugar merchants, and Flint's ready to go. He's got his hand on his gun. He knows it's going to pop off at any minute, because Hume knows what's going on. He knows what business Guthrie's in and what he's in with the pirates. Knows he's in on the gossip. He knows the skinny. He orders them all into custody, and it all pops off. Billy deflects a shot, but unfortunately it clips Guthrie right on the shoulder. And thankfully Billy and Flint easily knock out the Hume and his cronies. So now obviously, after Jack's blabbed, Singleton's not happy with Messiah and his little sub crew. There's Messiah and another guy. Jack's obviously arranged to deal with him. Obviously Vane, we'll find out soon, Vane's all involved in that, and it's all Vane's leading the things. So Messiah and his mate or whatever, they go to walk away, and we see Jack and Anne are waiting behind them. Actually, we see Jack, and we sort of see a shadow behind him, and slowly Anne reveals herself. If you watch my reactions and you're watching this again, you're like, is he still fucking on Anne? Jesus Christ. Anne, I loved Anne from the go. There's some characters that you come across, everyone will probably have one. If you watch a lot of TV and movies and stuff, sometimes all it takes is just the first glance, and you're like, oh shit. Oh, this is the one. I knew Anne was a baddie from the go. Like, as soon as she steps out, you know, you see the hat, you don't really see anything, and you see her do her swords, you're like, oh, she's a badass. And she just, you know, it's not even a challenge for her to take down this guy, and this guy's big. He's a big fella. And she's just like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And she just goes back right next to Jack. Like, yeah, you know, we're not going to get into Anne, well back. We're not going to get, you know, into Anne's sort of character and story arcs for a little while. She was that character. I was like, come on, when's she going to be on again? When's she going to be on again? Almost some points, you know, in a first watch through that it overtook it for me at points. So yeah, obviously I'm glad, obviously in rewatches I've taken more in, but yeah, I love Anne. But yeah, I'm going to, you know, right. Oh yeah, and of course, once that's done, equally baddie intro, we see Vane, you know, he's got his cigarette, whatever you want to call it, and blurred, and then he comes into focus. And I'm just like, wow, that was two baddies. That was two baddies in succession. Really great intros. And yeah, and obviously we'll get a bit more into Vane in a minute though. Joshua lets Gates and Eleanor know when they, you know, they're around the body. Yeah, and Joshua, you know, he's upset. They're obviously tight. They're obviously friends. And Vane's name is dropped as the last name Messiah said. The only thing Messiah said. Gates tells Joshua not to go for Vane because they'd lose that fight right at this moment. But Eleanor says, fuck that. So yeah, so now I think we're in Eleanor's. So yeah, Jack and Anne are having a little, you know, very quick little convo, and yeah, it's made clear that Vane and Jack's plan is to cause chaos for Flint, you know, with the knowledge that Singleton, once he becomes captain, will F things up royally, and they'll be waiting in the wings to get the defectors and, you know, get more on their team. We'll soon learn it's a Vane versus Flint kind of thing going on. They've got a lot of competition. Again, it's a short little scene, but Anne's she's scowling at Vane. She's just so angry. It seems, you know, they've had a good little result and they've probably got a little bit of money. And, you know, she points out they wouldn't have any of this without Jack. Yeah, and then she goes from angry to horny in like the space of a few seconds. Jack and Anne, to talk about them, we haven't got a lot at this point. Obviously, at this point, all we work out is like, oh, these two are hooking up. That's all you kind of defer at this point. But I'll go into it more when we come to it. But I think Jack and Anne are maybe my favourite ship ever. Not just a Black Sails, but like ever. I think they're one of the best. You can't have Anne and anyone without Jack and Anne. You know, we'll see that as well. Yeah, I think they're just such a great ship. But again, I'm quickly going to say that because I'll talk about that more in detail when we come to it. So yeah, fired up Eleanor, she just, you know, not thinking, like I say, she just smacks Vane, and he just wallops her right back. You know, this is right in front of all his crew and everything. She's done this, and he's not thought it through, and he's just gone on instinct. Yeah, and we're introduced to kind of the opposite of Anne and Jack, and maybe the most toxic couple, I'd argue. They have their moments, I want to say, and I think there was always something there once, but it's pretty toxic from the go, I'd hasten to say. So they take a little minute away, and he tenders up a little bit, kind of, you know, holding her face gently, and he's got a softer tone. Quickly established there's a history there. She tells him, you know, make it right with Flint, or she won't do business with him again. He tells her a hard truth. If forced, your father will always choose profits over daughters. If that isn't poor Eleanor being hit with the truth so early on, and it's true. Like, so he's literally, yeah, alright, I'll go to your dad then. Like, pretty much just shuts that straight down. Vane says he's the future and Flint is finished. And if she challenges him in front of his crew again, he might just forget he loved her once. So yeah, Vane first impression, you know, obviously going by that, just that first little bit, you know, badass. You know, it's Zach McGowan. Realist, and he's gritty. You know, that's kind of the first impressions you get of him. Yeah, I think, obviously, it's not cool. You know, he smacks her. That's not good. Obviously, we're in a different time. But he's got his reputation, hasn't he? And he's someone important. So, but yeah, again, it's very short time with Vane in this episode. So I'll keep that down as well. Keep that to a minimum. Looking forward to getting, you know, more into Vane. So yes, I think we're back at the brothel now, and yeah, Max, goes, sits with Silver, tells him she's working on finding a buyer. People are scared of taking on Flint, so she's struggling a little bit, and she has to be careful who she approaches, she basically says. She spots a bruised Eleanor come in and takes her upstairs, and we quickly learn that they have a thing. It seems more a physical thing at this point, as, Max doesn't really give her the chance to vent about what's happened. It's kind of very quick, like, oh, what's wrong? Come here. She's like, when the sea gets rough, you come to Max. Max is your harbour. I thought on first watch, especially when the next episode happens, I thought this was another, like, oh, this is for the audience, isn't it? They need a little girl on girl and a bit of a cheap shot, and especially when it ends, the relationship ends in the next episode and is cut very short. But Ellen Axe, I don't know if that's what they're called, but that's what I'm calling them. They actually had a really interesting relationship and dynamic throughout the whole run, and yeah, even though they never become a physical thing again, and they even bicker a lot. I think the rest of 1, 2, and 3 they're at loggerheads pretty much, more or less. But I think by 4 it kind of comes back round a little bit. But again, we'll do that when we come to it. Okay, so now obviously, yeah, Guthrie, he's out of it. He's not dead, but I thought he was dead first time round. I wasn't really following what was going on. But yeah, he's passed out in a skiff, I want to say, or maybe it's just a rowboat, I'm not sure. Flint's chucking his posh clothes kind of overboard, so he's not recognised. And Billy's just got his face on, his kind of reality, I guess, has just come crashing down, and the person in front of him is not the person he thought, and he confronts him about lying to the crew for so long, and Flint makes it clear he still doesn't want to clue them in on the lurker gold just right now. Yeah, and Billy says, oh, well, maybe Singleton is right. Flint does one of his signature little twitches, like, what? What did you say? He does one of them. We get our first one of them, and yeah, and they have a standoff, because as soon as he does that, Billy's like, wait. And yeah, and we just get absolute bars from Flint. Our first bars. He says there's a war coming, Billy. When a king brands us pirates, he doesn't mean to make us adversaries. He doesn't mean to make us criminals. He means to make us monsters. For that's the only way his God-fearing, tax-paying subjects can make sense of men who keep what is theirs and fear no one. Civilization is coming, and it means to exterminate. If we are to survive, we must unite behind our own king. And then Billy's like, we have no king here. And he goes, I am your king. Oh, goosebumps, what a scene. Flint had me invested here. Obviously, we got bits up to now in the episode and saw a little bit of him, but this is where we're like, oh, this guy's got a plan. This guy's knows business. He's a storyteller. He's a survivalist. He's seeing bigger pictures, like, all the time. This episode shows that especially. He's been told several times now, look, you've got to deal with your crew. Like, this is what's going on. And he's just like, no, I'm that thing over there. That's what I'm doing. You deal with that. Whatever. A problem's not a problem to Flint. If it's not in his peripherals, it's not a problem until it's, like, right there in his face. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, Flint's one of the best characters of TV ever, I think. Toby Stephens absolutely killed it. And yeah, I don't love Flint all the way through, especially on my first watch through. I was very, because it's obviously going to start getting very confusing with Flint. Obviously for first watchers, we now all know, but on a first watch, you're like, I don't know why he's doing this, and all that sort of stuff. But again, we'll deal with that when we come to it. But yeah, that speech, where he says he means to make, he's basically, that speech he just gave is basically such a parallel to what he will give at the very last episode. The dragon's speech, essentially. This is basically saying this is what is going to happen. This is what civilization is doing, is coming to do. And then by the end, he's like, this has happened. This is what's happening now. Foretelling it all, pretty much. He knows the deal. He knows what's coming. Civilization is coming, and it means to exterminate us. Absolutely phenomenal scene. Yeah, so, alright, so we're back on the ship now, on the Walrus, and yeah, poor Gates, he's worked his arts off, but Jack's just been a sneaky, and played him. So yeah, he gives the news to Flint. Singleton's ready. He wants to see you now. This is happening. I've done all I can, but it's happening. He leaves him, and Flint just rages in his office again. Now he's seeing it. He hasn't seen it. He's been like, oh, you deal with it, dude. I'll deal with it in a minute. And now he has to act. And time is against him. It's literally like, Gates is like, I can give him I can store you for a bit, but you are going to have to deal with this now. And I forgot to mention, when Max drops Silver off, he finds out what the missing page is about, sort of thing. I forgot to say that. There's a little kind of scene. And he drops a feather when Silver's doing that, and Flint spots the feather after he's had his little rage. Again, another bit of the week. Oh, someone was here since yesterday. Kind of realisation. I don't know why just seeing a random feather on the floor would do that, but one of those things. We'll let it fly. So yeah, Flint comes to the deck. He apologises to the crew. All the crew are out. Singleton's, ready to confront him. He apologises for the poor hauls and says without trust, a ship is doomed. While he's looking at Singleton, while he says that. So he's, we don't know it yet, but he's planning. He's like, right, I need time. I still got this main plan, this main thing I've got to do, but I need the crew on side. Again, this is just a great scene showing that when Flint is against the ropes, that's usually when he's at his best. That's usually when his best kind of inspiration comes. Yeah, I don't know if his apology is genuine to his crew. It's probably not, knowing Flint. I think he's probably bullshitting a bit, and like I say, just trying to get some time. He shows the book, the volume, and says someone stole the very page that would make them rich. But he accuses Singleton of stealing it. Whether he actually thinks that or not, I don't know. I don't think so, because, yeah, we'll see the thing with the page in a minute. But he's thinking on his feet. Yeah, Singleton, he's obviously confused as hell. He's like, what are you talking about? Gates, obviously being quartermaster and being official and all that, he announces, thievery is punishable by death at the worst, as is a false accusal. As per the articles, Singleton can submit to a trial, and obviously, yeah, Singleton's like, oh yeah, with you as a judge, we've already established he's not got much faith in Gates when it comes to his loyalty to Flint and all that sort of stuff. All they can do, like a sword or trial by combat, essentially, is what it is. Yeah, and it's a decent fight. Singleton gets a good slice in there, he gets a good slice on Flint, and it's a bit backwards and forwards. But eventually, yeah, swords get lost in I think one gets broken and that sort of thing. Yeah, once they're unarmed and Flint gets him grounded, it's a wrap. It's relentless. He pounds him to death pretty much. Yeah, Flint he switched the whole situation. So yeah, he takes the paper, which again, it always loses me a little bit, but I think he had it's his paper. Because yeah, Singleton just wouldn't have a blank piece of paper on him, would him? He's planned it. He's put the blank paper on him, but he makes it seem like he takes it from Singleton and he hands it to Billy. And Billy lies for him. Billy says it's the stolen page. Billy could have stopped it there and then. That could have been a big moment for Billy. He could have said it's a blank page. The men could have raged. And again, Flint probably would have got out of it, knowing Flint, or at least would have got away, or, Gates might have given him a helping hand. But what a big pivotal moment for Billy. He's kind of going against his morals, essentially, isn't he, now? And no really turning back at this point, is there, really, for Billy? I mean, obviously it doesn't go so downhill yet, but it's a start. It is a little start. It's a little snowball, very little one. Yeah, and then Flint just rolls with it. He name drops now. He name drops the lurker, says he's after a big treasure, gets them hyped. I'm not just going to make you rich. I'm not just going to make you strong. I'm going to make you the princes of the new world. The crew chant his name, and yeah, and Billy is just like, oh, what have I done? And obviously Silver, he's sort of like, oh, okay, he's got all this now. He can take all this in and be like, right. He's now obviously in the loop as well. And yeah, and just it should have ended on this, I think. I think it probably it would have been a stronger ending to end on this. But we get a very interesting little scene at the end. Jack is who Max has in idea, or obviously Vane. Jack is the in-between, isn't he? She comes in, he's in a room with Anne, and Anne's obviously, yeah, Anne's ready to gut her as soon as she comes and sits on Jack's lap. Yeah, he's mesmerised. He's just like, ooh, who are you? And she's like, I've got an idea, I've got a proposal for you, pretty much. And yeah, and the episode ends.
Last item.
So yeah, the first episode sets things up well enough. Decent introduction to all our players and how things work, both on a ship on Nassau. The plot is layered and complex. Everyone's going to have their own thing going on, but there's going to be a lot of connections and interweaving. A couple of plot holes in this first episode, just a little mine. I don't know, plot holes maybe a bit strong, but a couple of little things they could have maybe tightened up. Little bit of cringe. Yeah, but ultimately saying, look, these are multi-layered characters. When you think about this character's action in this scene, we're going to flip it in this one. Again, this is often described as the worst Black Sails episode, and I think there might be a couple more in early season 1 that sort of challenges that a little bit, for me anyway, but I still rate this at a respectable 7.8 out of 10. Okay, so MVP of the episode. So yeah, I've talked a lot about how Flint turned that around really, really well, but he left it a bit late, and it was, it was a bit tight. I'm gonna give MVP to Gates. I think, for the first time, I've really seen Gates in this episode, and he really stood out for me as a strong character. See how he's managing things. It's all behind the scenes. He's got... His scenes aren't super exciting and super like, wow, but he's doing bits. He's trying to control Flint. He's got the crew to look after, and he's got Billy, and then obviously, yeah, when he knows, right, Flint's going to do what Flint's going to do, so I've got to do what I've got to do, so Flint can still do what he got to do, because he's not paying attention to the problem at hand right now. And yeah, it unfortunately doesn't work out for him. Jack puts, an end to kind of all that, and his plans and all the kind of work he did. But clearly he goes above and beyond for his captain and his men, and yeah, I noticed that a lot more in this first episode. So yeah, I'm going to give MVP to Gates for this one. Best scene and best quote, they fall together for me in this one. It's Billy and Flint on the boat, on the skiff, or whatever you want to call it. We get our first real glimpse of what Flint's kind of really about, and a really kind of powerful moment from him. It's almost like we're Billy at this point, just kind of, wow, this guy's something else. The dialogue is fantastic. He doesn't mean to make us criminals, he means to make us monsters, for that's the only way his God-fearing, tax-paying subjects can make sense of men who keep what is theirs and fear no one. Civilization is coming, and it means to exterminate us. To exterminate us. Yeah, that kind of all kind of wins best quote as well. Great scene, great quote, and yeah, a really strong first episode. So yeah, I said that would be about half an hour to 45 minutes, and I have about an hour and a half at least to edit. I know that for a fact. So that'll be fun. Once I've cut out my ums and ahs and my stumblings and my word vomit, hopefully I can get that down to something that doesn't immediately put people off for the length. But yeah, if you caught this, thank you guys. Again, let me know in the comments ideas and things like that, and I'll kind of run with it. But yeah, for now, that's been episode 1. Thank you for watching. Take care. Peace out. Bye.